spending hours and hours on reading through Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis in order to take a salesman and turn him into a bug. Why is that significant? Why is it significant to study these Greek heroes slaying these serpents and these enemies, these witches? Why is it important to study Russian novelists and their approaches to history, to church history, to theology, to philosophy? Why is this necessary? Well, the reason why it's necessary is because it gives us a framework to act out our lives. It's not merely abstraction. It's not merely something that we will reflect on and then not act on. This is how we live our lives. This is why literature is important. My name is Samuel Corson. I am a literature major at Mississippi College. I am from a small lake town from eastern Alabama called Wedowee. It is lovely, and I have a lovely small southern family. All of them are well known for their ability to tell stories. I have authors in my family who have written books cataloging or telling their life stories, the adventures they've had. And sometimes an adventure can just be a small day going to the creek, or sometimes an adventure can be traveling to another country and having experiences that are truly life-changing. Within these stories, I found that they hone in on themes and on lessons that say, this is how you live your life. They'll say, these are the good guys. This is how you should live your life. This is how you should respond to conflict. And they have bad guys. Or the conflict of the story saying, these are people who may be misrepresented or may be not conducting themselves in the way in which they should. We celebrate the good and we try to steer away from the bad. And within these stories, there's a lot of characters that I, as a young, empathetic child, came in contact with. Some of these characters were within the stories that I heard growing up, and some were just on TV or in movies. And each character would take on certain characteristics that I would consider taking on myself. I would take these marbles and say, they represent a character. It's a pretty marble, but certain marbles or characters that I would see would showcase themselves in certain ways, and they would be taken on by me, and I would play them out. Eventually, there were marbles everywhere, and I was taking on the character traits of each different marble / character. And I wasn't sure what my identity was at certain points, because I was taking on the roles of all these characters. I was a young, angsty boy trying to find my way through this world, and I was at a loss for words and at a loss for who I was, as most high school boys do. So theme, identity. These are important points to focus in on. And an author who has been impactful on me, who has been a figure that I have looked at and his characters that I have looked at, has been Fyodor Dostoyevsky. He is a Russian novelist writing in the mid-19th century. And what critics have said about him is that they tend to focus more on his themes and on his story elements rather than the narratives of the story. I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. A term used to describe his characters, and describe the voice of his characters, is polyphony. multiple voices. And these voices would each have their individual traits. They would each have their individual voices and worldviews that might conflict in extreme ways. If you look at the characters Ivan and Alyosha within his story, the brothers Karamazov, Ivan is an extreme skeptic. He is an atheist, and he has gotten rid of the idea of God altogether. Where Alyosha, the other character, is a faithful servant. He's a monk serving the monastery, and Father Zazima, his figure of purity, his figure of faithfulness, his figure of thanksgiving and celebration for creation. Now, Ivan and Alyosha, they are both fully formed characters with fully formed voices. And they are characters who I saw as a child, and I saw their characteristic traits, and I saw who they were. And I was wanting to either take one on and take another one on and say, like, which one is me? And I would also have identity crisis or crises along the way in my research that I've done. I've found a case study using the term active empathy from a literary critic named Alina Wyman. And active empathy is being able to enter into the mind, into the characteristics, into the motivations and worldview of another character while holding on to yourself, while not stepping completely into them and living and breathing the world through their eyes. Rather, you breathe the world through your own eyes and still see and learn and experience from theirs. This is what she has described as learning. This is how we learn. This is how we expose ourselves to something new, a perspective that we may have not seen, or an experience that we might not have firsthand experienced. And we come away with a challenge, with a wrestling of what may not have been our original self. But instead of taking it on altogether, we're able to remain and hold on to what is ours, which is our own worldview, which we are able to develop ourselves. And it's a practice, it's a stride, it's a challenge to come up with your own. But ideas hold on to you. And these ideas, these characters, these themes, which I've been hearing throughout my entire life, they have held on to me. Philosopher and literary critic Max Scheler says, "The summum bonum is no longer the value of a thing, but an act." Studying literature, which may seem useless, we're no longer studying a thing. We're no longer studying a book that has no value or no meaning. Instead, we are studying an act. We're studying, how do you conduct yourself? You look at Jesus. Is Jesus a thing? You think of the incarnation? Or is he an act? Is he one who comes down to earth? Is he one that teaches and walks with the people that he has created and then dying to himself? All of that to me seems like an act. All of that seems to me like a way in which I should conduct my life. So is the case with Dostoyevsky's characters. Experiencing Alyosha, his faith, and the love and the celebration of creation that he had partook in himself, or seeing the cause and effect of Ivan and his existential dread towards the end of the novel, seeing that everything that he held to ended up not supporting anything at all. The active empathy is how we educate ourselves. And instead of being marbles spread out across the floor, we're able to be collected and have multiple forms within ourselves, but still remaining a whole. Why do we study literature? Why is it important to look at these works in depth? Is it just a waste of time? Why not study something else? Why not partake in something else? I say it's important because how will we develop a foundation of learning and a foundation of who we are and our identity in the themes that we see in the world around us? That's it.